So learning unit 7 is consumer and producer surplus, right? Consumer and producer surplus are, yeah, I would say it's one of the easier ones. Like not even easier, easiest maybe. Because there's really nothing much to explain when it comes to this part. I think I could summarize all of it with just one diagram and then maybe we can explain it and see what they say in terms of your notes. So we have here your price, we have here your quantity, right? And then we know you have your supply, I can start it somewhere here, and then I have your demand somewhere over here. So now let's say you go to a particular shop, I don't know which shop that is. What are you buying? Sorry? Muffins. So this is the market for muffins. So when you live here, let's say you are not really familiar with, you know you like the mug and bean ones, but you're not really 100% sure how much is it. So you can have a kind of a range in your mind, but you won't know the exact amount, like unless you buy them almost like a lot. So in this instance, let's say, well, what is the maximum price you are willing to pay for a muffin? You are not sure how much it is, but you know, like Mac and Bean has the big ones. So like, they okay. So like when you live here, you think to yourself, okay, I'm not sure, maybe 40 rand, but like I have a 50 solid, like that's maximum. I won't add anything to the 50 rand that I have. So when you live here, in your mind, you know, I have 50 rand prepared to buy this particular muffin. You get there, what is the price? It's 40 rand. You, that's the real price. What? So why didn't you tell me? You wanted to scare me. Like I was thinking, like, no, I'm not going to buy it. Okay. So now you get the, remember in your mind, you told yourself, like, I'm willing to pay up to 50 rand, nothing more than that. So you get there, the market price is 28 rand. So there is this portion above the market price, but below the demand curve. You were willing to spend this money as well. So now to you, it's more like a saving in a way. You kind of experience the surplus. You remain with something because you're willing to pay up to 50. So in economic terms, we call that the consumer surplus.
So what happens if, because I had something similar the other day, I went to go soak with nails.
Uh-huh.
I thought, okay, fine, and it should be 50 rand to soak with nails, but actually it was 60 rand.
Yes.
So I went there, prepared to spend 50, but then because it was 60, it wasn't too far
From
from 50.
50.
I still spent.
So although you thought 50, you had an amount. If they said 100, would you have bought?
No.
No. So yeah, like in that instance, you didn't really experience any consumer surplus at all. You actually would have a negative consumer surplus because on top of the 50, you had to add something,
So I had to add
an extra 10, even though you felt to yourself, yeah. So in this particular case, we would draw a diagram maybe slightly differently because you are saying when you left, it would be difficult though to actually put across. We are saying you are willing to pay up to 50, but this is your individual, remember, your individual demand curve. You found that actually supply curve maybe is starting from somewhere here and demand curve is somewhere there. So whereby the price, the actual demand for the market, it is higher than your individual demand. So this time you suffered because the market actually is okay with that price level. You get it? So in your case, you actually suffered like almost a loss of like a 10 rand in a way, or because that you were not willing to pay that extra. But normally, we are going to be having situations where you get a surplus. You have this price in your mind, you find the price is a bit less than, and then this region that I've shaded over here would be what we call our consumer surplus. Is that okay? So you might be asked to calculate what is the actual figure for that. And in this region, remember, this shape is a triangle. So we would have to use area of a triangle, which we know is half base times height. That would be the formula that you'd have to use. In this case, like let's say the quantity here is 100, you would now say the consumer surplus is equal to half of 100. If this is 0, you can say 100 minus 0 because you are moving from here until there. So it would be 100 multiplied by my, this is my base, my height is the difference between 50 and 28. So I would say 50 minus 28 and then get an answer. That would give me the actual figure for the consumer surplus. But in this instance, we are not really worried much about it unless maybe if you're going to do your second year economics as well. So, but in this instance, we just need you to understand what is consumer surplus. So they will give you a scenario where they tell you there's 3 people, person A, B, and C. They are going to buy a muffin. So for A, they were willing to pay 50, B was willing to pay 40, C 30, and D thought they would pay 25. They will ask you now, what is the total consumer surplus experienced by these people? You would now come and say, okay, the muffin is 28 rand, so this person had 22 rand, 12 rand, 2 rand, and this one actually has 0 because they didn't experience any consumer surplus at all. So consumer surplus, you'd now add those figures to come up to, yes, to the total. That is the kind of question that you're expected to know for now. If you're asked to define it, you would say it's the area above the price but below the demand curve. Is that fine? So besides our consumer surplus, I'm also going to talk a bit about another scenario that we can think of. So now let's say you are Mark and Bean, you are the supplier. How much do you think is the cost of actually producing that muffin? So they have a cost that they actually would say, okay, this is how much it costs us to make the muffin. I don't think it should be very expensive though, like, yeah. So this is their supply curve, and we said this is our demand curve. So now as the supplier, you go into the market, you have a minimum price that you are willing to take for a particular good or service. In this case, we are saying maybe 8 rand. This is like to break even. If you are telling yourself, no, I'm trying these muffins for the first time, if they don't sell, at least if I can get 8 rand back, that's enough. Like, I'm fine, I didn't lose anything, I just break even. Now, you get to the market, you find out, oh, actually, these muffins are going for 28 rand. Now you have this region again, but you are not the consumer. It's not on the demand curve, it's on the supply curve. So now this one, we call it the producer surplus. So it's over and above your supply curve, but below the price. That would give you your consumer surplus. Don't worry, we are going to get to it. I was just talking about it in general. We're still going to go back to our notes in terms of the consumer surplus first, and then we'll go to the producer. So consumer surplus, we just in terms of a definition, we say, okay, demand, we defined what demand is, and then this is the demand curve that they've introduced the price level. Then next we go on and we say, for example, a person willing to pay 6 rand, but they pay 4 rand. They are going to experience some kind of a surplus that they are going to get. So we have these regions over here. Like for this guy, he was willing to pay 4 bags of money, right? I don't know what he's buying. That's a lot of money. But he only paid 3. So his surplus is that extra 1 bag that he remained with. Is that okay? I thought maybe I would see this logo. What is it? But it's not clear. What product? Okay. Genuine. Yo, you can see.
Wow.
Oh, you have a different study guide. They cheated us. Okay. You can also read. Wow. So some of us need to get glasses. So in this instance, so that is just the general idea with your consumer surplus. We have a scenario here. They tell us at a price of 4 rand, buyers are willing and able to buy 300, for example. They say at a price, for instance, at point B, some buyers are willing to pay 7 rand, but are only paying 4. So they have a surplus of 3 rand. So that's the idea as we go on to say what you are willing to pay and how much did you actually pay. So at the end, we get this shaded region over here, which we termed as our total consumer surplus. Does it make sense? Okay. A change in price and consumer surplus. What is going to happen if the price increases?
Then your surplus will decrease.
Your consumer surplus is going to decrease. Because like if you look at this diagram, initially if this was price 1 and then this is price 2, it means this whole area, it used to be, it was this one. But now because of that price, it's only going to be this one because you're paying more than what you did before. So that's consumer surplus. Producer surplus on the other side, we have defined what it is. It is on the supply side. You go there, and remember, it's rarely ever that our supply curve is going to start at 0, 0, because that is not really a true reflection of reality. No supplier is willing to be at 0. Usually, when you supply something, you already have costs that you have incurred to produce. So it should you normally start maybe somewhere there and then going up. But it doesn't matter if they sketch it that way or you do that, it's fine. So in this instance, we are saying this is the supplier, this is the price. They're just showing us gradually how we are going to get to this point. So here they say we can formally define producer surplus as the difference between the amount the producer receives and the minimum amount the producer is willing to accept. We should have had one for consumer surplus as well. Did we skip it? Page 2? Total consumer surplus. I wanted just a definition. I didn't see it. Okay, there it is on page 211. It's here. It says consumer surplus can be defined as the difference between what consumers pay and the value they receive as measured by the maximum price they are willing to pay. So those are the working definitions that you can use. But at times, if you need to interpret it, it wouldn't be put like this. You'd have to say it's below the demand curve and above the price. That's another way that we can explain that. Okay, so we have the definition for a producer surplus. And then we go on, I need the diagram. We're going to get it where total producer surplus is from the individual producers. One can get a certain surplus and so on and so on. The total is going to be the gray area that we have over here. And again, a change in price is going to influence the producer surplus. A decrease in the price, if price decreases, it means producers are worse off. If you are the consumer, though, it would be good for you. Yeah, they are always at each other's opposite ends. And then we have what we call, did we talk about it a lot? They just showed it here. The dead weight loss, the small thing here. Okay. They didn't say much about it. I'm not going to say anything yet. So market, the total consumer and producer surplus in the market, we would highlight by both demand curves and supply curves and then shade these two. The painful part is like one comes at the expense of the other. If there is an increase in one, it means the other one is decreasing. And then we can get a situation where we have a loss in both producer and consumer surplus. What would have happened in this case, for example? Mm. if the cost of production increases, it would shift the supply curve. But in this case, the supply curve is still in the same place. Supply curve is still in the same place. They're saying that, so this is just an explanation. They're saying if, although at equilibrium, supply, demand, at equilibrium, people would be willing to buy 300 units. But suppliers are only able to produce 240. They are not able to actually get to that 200. So it means consumers are going to get that 240 and we are going to end here. This region over here is going to be lost surplus on both sides because they wanted to be having this, but it doesn't belong to anyone anymore. So that is just an example there. What else? What else? Nothing, nothing, nothing. Are you fine with consumer and producer surplus? That's why I was saying this is actually a very small part. It's not like very, very. Yeah, okay. Let me say and look.